For banks that aren't yet ready to take the jump to a national exchange and file an IPO, there are actually a number of options. One of those options would be to look and see if they're actually already publicly traded. Many banks already do trade over the counter or on the OTC markets. In fact, about 630 trade off exchange or on one of our 3 markets. Of those, 80 trade on our highest tier, OTCQX, and another 43 trade on our OTCQB markets. These markets provide banks with much of the value of being publicly traded on a national exchange post-IPO without all the cost complexity of pain that they have to go through to get there. So banks really should look at, what am I trying to achieve? Do I have a large shareholder base? Do I want to be able to engage that shareholder base, provide those shareholders with a public market, with liquidity options, and again, doing it in a way that's much more cost effective and less onerous than being on a national exchange. The benefits of trading on OTC Market Group are probably multiple. First and foremost, when looking at it vis-a-vis a national exchange, is the cost and complexity differences. To be on a national exchange requires a lot of effort, a lot of extra regulatory burden, a lot of extra things like compensation committees, a lot of increased oversight, documentation requirements. For banks that trade on the OTC market, they can use their bank disclosure as qualifying for our OTCQX and QB market. This takes away a lot of that pain, cost, and complexity of being on a national exchange. Looking at it from a private banking point of view, as whether or not I should go public, there are also a number of benefits. You now have a public price. Your shareholders can now see the value of their security in real time in a public market. For many private banks, they actually kind of trade the securities out of the treasurer's desk. So you're now taking that process and you're making it public, and you're giving your shareholders the comfort and the knowledge of knowing that there is an exit strategy or there's a place that they can go to trade their security. Bank executives and boards really need to think about what they're trying to achieve, either from a listing or from going with the OTC option. Many banks look at 2 things really. Do I want to be acquired or acquire? So do I need a public market to have a public price and a public option for an acquisition currency? And B, what about my shareholder base? What am I hoping to achieve with that shareholder base? Do I have a shrinking shareholder base because I'm in a small community where my original shareholders are maybe dying off and those shares are going to children and grandchildren? Am I looking to grow my shareholder base? Shareholders want to have a public market, they want to have a public price, they want to have an exit strategy, they want to know there's liquidity. So those are really the 2 things banks should consider when deciding whether or not to be public or go public. If a bank is considering an M&A opportunity, whether it's on the acquire or the acquiree side, there are multiple benefits to being public versus private. Certainly one of those is the public valuation that you get. Whether you're acquiring or being acquired, knowing what that public valuation is, seeing it open and not having to worry about figuring out what you're worth and spending the cost and complexity associated with that is a benefit. Additionally, being public just means that you're engaging your shareholders and you're putting information out into the market so that investors can see it. Transparency in that respect is much better for an institution if they're looking at one side of an M&A or both sides of an M&A transaction than a private bank that really has never had any experience and has to start thinking about this from scratch.